The Section 121 exclusion is a critical topic for the exam, allowing a taxpayer to exclude a significant amount of gain from the sale of their principal residence. The maximum exclusion is $250,000 for most filers, and this amount doubles to $500,000 for married couples filing a joint return who meet specific criteria. To qualify for this exclusion, a taxpayer must satisfy both an ownership test and a use test. Both tests require the taxpayer to have owned and used the property as their principal residence for at least 2 of the 5 years immediately preceding the date of sale. These 2 years, which equate to 24 months, do not have to be continuous. An exam question might give you a complex timeline. For instance, a taxpayer buys a home on January 1st, 2022. They live in it for all of 2022, rent it out for all of 2023, and then live in it again for all of 2024 before selling it on January 1st, 2025. In the 5-year period before the sale, they have owned the home for 3 years and lived in it for 2 years. They meet both tests and can claim the exclusion. The most common exam trap involves the rules for married couples seeking the full $500,000 exclusion. To qualify, both spouses must meet the 2-year use test. However, only one spouse needs to meet the 2-year ownership test. Additionally, neither spouse can be ineligible for the exclusion because they sold another home and took the exclusion within the last 2 years. The exam will test this with a scenario where a couple marries and one spouse moves into a home the other spouse has owned and lived in for 10 years. If they sell the home just 1 year after the marriage, the new spouse fails the use test. The couple cannot claim the $500,000 exclusion. The spouse who met both tests on their own can still claim their $250,000 exclusion. A helpful mnemonic for the joint exclusion is 221 for $500K. This stands for 2 spouses must meet the use test. It must have been at least 2 years since either spouse claimed a prior exclusion, and only one spouse must meet the ownership test. Another heavily tested area is the partial exclusion for unforeseen circumstances. If a taxpayer fails to meet the 2-year requirements but sells the home due to a change in place of employment, for health reasons, or other unforeseen events, they may be eligible for a reduced exclusion. The exam will require you to calculate this. Imagine a single taxpayer lives in a home for 18 months before their employer transfers them 300 miles away. They can claim a partial exclusion calculated as a fraction of the full amount. You take the number of qualifying months, 18, and divide it by 24. This gives you 75%. They can exclude up to 75% of the $250,000 maximum, which equals $187,500. Finally, be prepared for questions on non-qualified use. If a property was used for something other than a principal residence, such as a rental or vacation home, after 2008, the portion of the gain attributable to that period is not excludable. For example, if a taxpayer owned a home for 10 years, using it as a rental for the first 2 years and a principal residence for the last 8, 20% of the gain would be considered from non-qualified use and would be taxable.